Since the beginning of time, racism has altered society in the worst way, and because of this, minorities fell to the lowest totem pole where society continues to ostracize people of color. Some of the major forms of racial discrimination that minorities are facing in the modern world is prejudice and stereotypes. Today, we are living in a hostile environment ever since the COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc on the world. Due to the outbreak and where it originated, people are putting their animosity of the situation onto Chinese people and all Asians alike. Although this pressing matter is not anything new, because it was already engraved into the cultural structures of countries. As minorities were assimilated to fit into culture norms or endured a series of lynchings, their voices have been silenced. Because of years of racism and discrimination, minorities strive to do their best to represent their culture in the right way in order to prove that they are not defined by the racial stereotypes that were placed upon them. However, as long as the world prolongs these racist actions and perception, a world that lives in unity may never exist. Thus, a cultural shift needs to take place in order to dismantle racism. People like when they see their race being portrayed on television because it allows for more representation. However, in Hollywood, there is a lack of representation for most groups. Despite the recent progress in movies or in media, whenever they cast an Asian role, they most likely depicted the character as being overly intelligent or another exaggerated Asian stereotype, like being talented in martial arts. More specifically, in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's, they casted a white actor to play an Asian male character. In turn, they did Yellowface, a non-Asian person imitating an Asian person. Therefore, Hollywood movies contribute to the existing prejudice by feeding the audience racial stereotypes. Likewise, according to Kara Shaw's article, movies typically show black men as dangerous and Latinas as sassy. For instance, black males are usually tied to crime, and black women are shown as being loud or the funny best friend. As for Latino representation, the Latino men and women are hired simply to provide sex appeal. In addition, there is a controversial issue surrounding the misrepresentation of African American women. In other words, in almost all shows, whenever they decide to put a person of color, such as an African American, it feels more like a token black character, and 99% of the time they are mixed with black and white. While there is no problem with that, a vast majority of society feels as though Hollywood doesn't think a darker complexion African American is beautiful enough. As Kara Sincock explained in her TED Talk regarding racial stereotypes presented in media, she says, "There are times when our prejudice stop people from doing what they love. There are times when our preconceptions force people to hide key parts of who they are." Racism has a foot in several countries. However, there are some countries that are not generally exposed to other races, so it leaves racism to linger amongst people of the same race. For example, Anne-Marie Chamura points out in her article that in the Philippines, there's glorification of white and fair skin. This ties back to the social ills of the Philippines, the main issue being colorism. That is, billboards, famous actors, and cosmetic products are all advertising fair skin, leaving people of the country to feel like they have to whiten their skin to meet the beauty standards. Likewise, this part of racism lives in other parts of Asia as well, namely double eyelid surgery. Moreover, Asian people have been ridiculed for their eyes for decades, thus making them want to emulate Western beauty ideals. So, the surgery became more accessible in parts of Asia due to its popularity. Also, African American women struggle to fall in love with their natural hair because media glorifies sleek and vibrant hair. As a result, many women and girls alike carry the weight on their shoulders and feel the need to straighten their hair. However, that does not mean they hate their hair, but the media places an unattainable beauty standard for colored women. Again, this ties back to the previous TED Talk because people feel like they have to hide their true selves, which ends up digging a tunnel of self-hate and insecurity. Granted, some people do not care for these issues simply because it does not affect them. But in this manner, the media and society have a lot to consider. But for now, they must realize that they are affecting people by promoting these unconventional ideas onto groups. Because if the misrepresentation and racist beauty standards continue, the division of non-whites and whites will grow further apart. The UN organization, the European Convention of Human Rights, is dedicated to combat racism and racial discrimination by protecting human rights. While their efforts have made some progress by getting the government and civil society involved, there is still much work that needs to be done. Overall, the racism of the world is far more prominent than this. There are many factors that are taken into account when it affects a certain country and its population. Despite this, the unrealistic beauty norms as well as the racist depictions need to be erased from society. Even though it might not target everyone, they need to realize it is a real issue with serious repercussions. Again, this issue extends beyond color. It regards society's perceptions of these groups.
It's a go right way. Let's go right. This time I'm warning you.
I love white. White is clean. White is pure. White is beautiful. Mossview makes my skin whiter, healthier, younger looking. I'm at my most beautiful with Mossview Placenta White.
Mossview, whiter skin in 14 days.
Basically, they would prefer us to do everything that is not from us. They want us to have the straight, long textured hair when most of the time we're not born with the straight hair. So why is it that it's okay for me to have a weave and be accepted at an interview rather than come with my afro? It's not right. And that's why we're taking a stance now, because we want to be accepted just the way we are.